ओम परतत्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We are studying Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga here, and in the second chapter we read two sentences. Actually, one sentence only. And last time, on that half of a sentence, we assimilated as much as possible. Now, before proceeding, we must know the place again. So, in the first chapter, definition of bhakti, in the end, Swamiji has said, bhakti is a series or succession of mental efforts at religious realization, beginning with ordinary worship and ending in a supreme intensity of love for the Ishvara. Supreme intensity of love for the Ishvara, Bhakti Yoga ends there. That itself is realization. And from the beginning, Swamiji has said, it is spiritual realization. So, the attempt is at experience anywhere. That is the main point in Swamiji's Bhakti Yoga. On the first day I told you the difference between Bhakti and Bhakti Yoga. All of us do Bhakti, even not expecting any response from the God. But Bhakti Yoga means Bhakti used as a means of God realization. That is Bhakti Yoga, amongst the many yogas. And the method is experiencing God right from the beginning. So, all this came down to what is God. And for that, Swamiji has taken the second chapter. And so the heading of the second chapter is the philosophy of Ishvara. Philosophy means to find out the nature of Ishvara. And then we read again the first sentence which we had read. Who is Ishvara? Also with two sentences we read. Now first is question. Janmadi asya yata. From whom is the birth, continuation and dissolution of the universe. That is the most standard and correct definition of Ishvara, used as definition of Brahman in Badarayana Vyasa's Brahma Sutra. He is Ishvara, the eternal, the pure, the ever-free, the almighty, the all-knowing, the all-merciful, the teacher of all teachers. So this is all from the Brahma Sutra's first sutra, second, and Shankara's commentary on that. And we have seen that the most important points to remember is Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman and Paramakaruni. That is how Sagun Brahman is decided. And then on the last class we studied, and above all. Above all, that means the supreme definition. Sa Ishvara Anirvachaniya Prema Swarupaha. For this we spent the whole class last year. He, the Lord, is of his own nature inexpressible love. Here the sentence ends. Now, all these, let us read what Swamiji is saying now. These certainly are the definitions of a personal God. Personal God is the English translation of what we call Saguna Brahma or Ishvara. A Brahman or Ishvara who is a person. He is not a person like us, mind you. He is not an individual like us. He is the samashti person. He is the sum total of all the persons. So, we are not being deviated by Patanjali's definition that he is a being like us, not at all. Person in the sense that he loves us, we love him. So these are all qualities of a person. And so, he is a person. In our language, in Sanskrit, we call it Saguna Brahma. Also we call it Ishvara. Ishvara is equal to Saguna Brahma. So, Swamiji says, these certainly are the definitions of a personal God. Are there then two gods? So, a great confusion is created by the philosophers. Name should not delude us. Name should not create any confusion. And generally, between the Jnanins, Jnanamargis and Bhakti Margis, this is always a big problem. That the Jnanis say, we want Nirguna Brahman. And Bhaktas say, we want Ishvara. And they think this Jnanis, Nirguna Brahma is something different. And even the philosophers wrongly think Ishvara is different. Not how many people have heard the so-called Vedantis telling that there is no place of Ishvara in Vedanta. So, they take Ishvara to be something different or lower. So, Swamiji is now telling us the exact position. It's a very important thing. Are there then two gods? The not this, not this. So the Nirguna Brahma cannot be defined. It is only defined by negating the entire existence, negating the entire personality, negating the entire universe. So the definition is only not this, not this. Saguna Brahma we have now described in words, Janmadi Asyata and Parama Karunika and Anirvachaniya Prema Swarupa, all these were described. Nirguna Brahma can be told only as not this, not this. The Satchit Ananda, this much we know. Existence, consciousness, bliss, this much we know. The existence, conscious knowledge, bliss of the philosopher. By the word philosopher, Swamiji is telling the Jnani or the Jnanamargi, that is philosopher. And this God of love of the Bhakta, so out of all the definitions, Swamiji has chosen the last one, God of love of the Bhakta. Are these two? No. It is the same. So Swamiji's definite answer in the very beginning is that no, they are not two. They are not two different entities. This confusion should vanish forever. It is the same Satchidananda who is also the God of love. The impersonal and personal in one. Nirguna Brahma is called in English impersonal. He is not a particular person. He is not the samashti person even. So, impersonal and personal in one. That means Nirguna Brahma itself, we see him as Saguna Brahma. So they are not two. It has always to be understood that the personal God worshipped by the Bhakta is not separate or different from the Brahman. Two words Swamiji has used. Separate or different. Separate makes it very different. And not separate but different is a subtle difference. And Swamiji has denied both. And he has told us that the same Nirguna Brahma is Saguna Brahma. Now how that Swamiji will explain to us? All is Brahman, the one without a second. Now, whether you call it Nirguna or Saguna, Brahman is always to be understood as one without a second. That means other than Brahman, nothing exists in the world. That is the main point. Only the Brahman as unity or absolute is too much of an abstraction to be loved and worshipped. So you have to understand these words. Unity, one. When we think of Saguna Brahma, sometimes we are there. If you think of Nirguna Brahman, we do not exist. The world does not exist. So it is called unity. Second word used is abstraction. Abstractions mean from the sthula world, from the gross world, we abstract, we draw out the subtle. From that subtle we draw out again, subtler. So abstraction means like we take a juice from the fruit, like we take smell from the flower, essence of everything, that is called abstraction. So, now abstraction necessarily means sukshma. And how much sukshma? No limit to that. How can we love it? How can we love something which is too sukshma, which is not available to our indriyas, which is not available to our mind, which is not available even to the ego that we have seen? And so, that Nirguna Brahma cannot be loved because we are not separate, cannot be loved because it is too subtle, is too much of an, one more word we have missed, absolute. Absolute means same thing, nothing else exists, that is called absolute. Absolute, if we translate in our language, Sanskrit language, it is nirapeksha. Absolute means nirapeksha. It does not expect the existence of I, you, he, she, it. That is nirapeksha, is absolute. Because in English language, these concepts or these ideas do not exist. And so some substitute words Swamiji is using as much as he could. In Sanskrit, these ideas are very clear. But now we understand that Nirguna Brahma is too much of an, as unity or absolute, is too much of an abstraction to be loved and worshipped. Worship means, what is the difference? Love is in our mind. Love is actually in our heart. And worship is something by physical, by hands. So, love when expressed as action is worship. The spirit within worship is love. Some people, now here we have to understand something. Some people, eternal throughout the life, they worship God and no love sprouts in them. So that Swamiji has already told in the first chapter that cannot be called a bhakti at all. Now love is there. And if love is there, it expresses itself as worship. When the love is too intense, then worship is not necessary. Worship drops down and love can be loved. So these two words we understand. Love expressed physically is worship. The spirit within worship is love. Love is something subtle, can be experienced by mind, really by the heart. I have several times shown the difference between the mind and the heart. Mind, what is that? Please silence everybody. The mind connects us with the outside world. And heart connects us only with God, nothing else. So the actually function of the heart, but we feel it through the mind in the beginning. And when it is expressed physically, it is called worship. So the Bhakta chooses the relative aspect of Brahman. Relative is the word used against absolute. Absolute is nirapeksha, relative is sapeksha. Sapeksha means I am there, my worship is there, my love is there. In relation to this, God is there. That is Ishvara, the supreme ruler. The literal meaning of the word Ishvara is supreme ruler. You know, Isha. Isha means ruler. Ishvara means supreme ruler. Vara is Shrestha. So Ishvara means supreme ruler. That is the meaning of the word Ishvara. To use a simile. No, this cannot be rationally understood at all. The only way to understand is Upamana Pramana. Something we show which we know, like that, then we understand that. To use a simile, Brahman is as the clay or substance out of which an infinite variety of articles are fashioned. Clay, what we start with? Clay. No. We start with a lump of clay. And from the lump of clay, we make mouse and Ganpati and so many images, Durga image. But what is the lump of clay? Actually clay. So clay here stands for Nirguna Brahma. Lump of clay is the Saguna Brahma. Saguna Brahman is the samashti, as I have maintained. So from the lump we can make anything. That lump is broken. Clay is never broken. Clay is never destroyed, relatively. So this is the way Swamiji is explaining the difference. I can use another simile. There is ocean, and from the ocean so many waves are rising. But there is water. Ocean also is a shape. I told you, I shared with you, one of my friends, what is his name, I forget now, Ramakrishna Maharaj. He showed me that there cannot be any Nirakar Saguna Brahma. Cannot be. So what we call Nirakar is non-specified Akar, a Vishishta Roop. Just now I showed clay. Clay is a form. Does not have a defined form like a image or like that, but it is a form. Similarly, ocean has a form. So, that is Saguna Brahma, Avishishta. Brahman is as the clay or substance out of which an infinite variety of articles are fashioned. As clay, they are all one. You know this, there is a funny real story. A very rich person had all his gods and everything made of gold. Now, fortune turned and he became very, very poor. So he decided to sell those gods to get some money. Now he goes to the goldsmith and asks what should be the rate. They have their method of finding. And they said such and such is the rate. He says same for Ganpati and same for mouse. The goldsmith said, for you it is Ganpati and mouse. For me it is gold only. So, you understood? As Ganpati and mouse they are different. But when they become gold there is no difference. But form or manifestation differentiate them. Mouse has a different form, Ganpati has a different form, otherwise they are gold. Before every one of them was made, they all existed potentially in the clay. This you understand? This can be better understood from the Murtikar point of view. There is a stone pillar, rock or whatever. There is no Vishnu in that, we think. But the sculptor visualizes Vishnu there. And what is not Vishnu, that he chisels out. Vishnu comes out. We have not seen that Vishnu, but he had seen. And that is why he makes a sculptor. It is not like clay we are making a sculpture. It is cutting from the existing stone. So that is called potential. Even in the clay, Ganpati is there. We do not see it, so it is called potential. When the shape is given, we see that. And of course, they are identical substantially. Substantially means as gold, Ganpati and mouse are same. As clay, bull and Shiva are same. But when formed, and so long as the form remains, they are separate and different. So long as the form remains. Suppose two clay things we put in water, or gold we melt, then the form has gone. They are same. This is the idea one must cultivate in the mind. God is great. But if I and God both melt, we are of the same substance. That is what Swamiji is trying to show us. As long as the form remains, they are separate and different. The clay mouse can never become a clay elephant. Because Swamiji is telling them elephant. You understand? Ganpati. Because as manifestations, form alone makes them what they are. Though as unformed clay, they are all one. Ishvara is the highest manifestation of the absolute reality. From that clay, what best form we can make, that is Ishvara. From the existence, knowledge, bliss, what best form can be made, that is Ishvara. So highest manifestation, it is not a question of form. All the qualities possible are there. That is called highest manifestation. We are Alpadnya, Alpashakti, he is Sarvadnya, Sarvashakti. So that is called the highest manifestation. Ishvara is the highest manifestation of the absolute reality, or in other words, the highest possible reading of the absolute by the human mind. This is the most important thing which Swamiji has shown in one stroke. He has shown what is Saguna and Nirguna Brahman. Nirguna Brahman is there, and we are trying to conceive it. When we are trying to conceive it, we can conceive only with the mind, human mind. And when human mind conceives, there is no Nirguna Brahman. When Nirguna Brahma is realized, there is no mind. So when the mind tries to read the Nirguna Brahma, best, because non-evolved person thinks differently of God. God is the Punisher, God is this, that is very low manifestation. The higher and higher bhakti, the real understanding is that nothing can be beyond. Beyond that, Nirguna Brahma. So that is called the highest manifestation. Highest possible reading of the Absolute by the human mind. Now, when we think of Nirguna Brahma, there is no world. But world is eternal for us. So the Creator is eternal. This is Swamiji's proof. When we say Nirguna Brahma, world does not exist. But if the world exists, the ruler exists. This is the highest one. So Nirguna Brahma itself appears as the world and he rules it. Creation is eternal for us, and so also is Ishvara. Now Swamiji has explained it in his own way, and now he brings up the Brahma Sutras to explain the same thing. In the fourth pada of the fourth chapter of his sutras, we have seen that Badarayana Vyasa's sutras, have 4 chapters, each chapter having 4 quarters. So in the last quarter, after stating the almost infinite power and knowledge which will come to the liberated soul after the now what Swamiji is trying to show, Ishvara can be only one. Whether you call it Muhammad or Allah or it is a different thing. The Brahmajnas have all the powers, but they cannot create the world. So, love for God is what is the God, not love for any person. That is what Swamiji said in this chapter. So now, Vyasadeva explains this thing. He is discussing what the Brahmajnas can do. In an example, I will tell you. I had given this example in different contexts. In 1926, during the non-cooperation movement, everybody in India was flared up with patriotism. And people thought that if Ramakrishna Mission joins, then the Britishers will run away in 3 days. So one sadhu approached Mahapurush Maharaj. Maharaj, that is what they say. He said, do you know how much power we have got? You are talking of power. How much power we have got, do you know? He said, let aside Vivekananda. All of us, Sri Ramakrishna's every disciple, has the power to lift your earth and put it down. That much power we have got. But Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda have told us to use all the power only for spiritual regeneration of man, not for body. So how much power? But it does not include the power of creating the world. That is this. Swamiji is describing. Almost infinite power. In the 4th part of the 4th chapter is Sutras, after stating the almost infinite power and knowledge which will come to the liberated soul after the attainment of moksha, Vyasa makes the remark in an aphorism that none, however, will get the power of creating, ruling and dissolving the universe. What is the sutra? Jagad Vyapara Varjam. All powers except Jagad Vyapara. Jagad Vyapara means creation, preservation, destruction of the universe. That is for Ishvara only. Because that belongs to God alone. In explaining the sutra, it is easy for the dualistic commentators to show how it is ever impossible for a subordinate soul, Jiva, to have the infinite power and total independence of God. The dualists, they take to be eternally separate from God. So it is easy for them to show. But question is what Shankaracharya tells about it. Because Brahmavid Brahmayava Bhavati is the dictum for man. In explaining this chapter is only one point about who is Ishvara. In the next chapter, Swamiji will tell that we are not much concerned with that. We want to experience. But it is necessary, the intellectual idea to get clear. The thorough, Swamiji has taken 3 commentators to explain. Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya and Shankaracharya. The thorough dualistic commentator Madhvacharya. You know what Madhva calls his philosophy? Shuddha Advaita. But it is actually gross dualism. The thorough dualistic commentator Madhvacharya deals with this passage in his usual summary method by quoting a verse from the Varaha Purana. On this sentence, Madhvites are very angry. Why Swamiji has said like that? But Swamiji is telling the fact. Not much explanation. Quotation of one Purana, that's all. In explaining this aphorism, the commentator Ramanuja says, this doubt being raised, Whether among the powers of the liberated souls is included that unique power of the Supreme One, that is of creation, etc. of the universe. In the Ramanuja's idea, there is no Nirgun Brahma at all. And even the lordship of all, or whether without that the glory of the liberated consists only in the direct perception of the Supreme One. I can see God, I cannot be like God. It is easy for him to tell. We get as an argument the following: it is reasonable that the liberated get the lordship of the universe because the scriptures say he attains to extreme sameness with the Supreme One and all his desires are realized. If we are not like God, how all our desires are fulfilled? So, Purva Paksha Ramanuja is presenting. Now, extreme sameness and realization of all desires cannot be attained without the unique power of the Supreme Lord, namely that of governing the universe. Therefore, to attain the realization of all desires and the extreme sameness with the Supreme, we must all admit that the liberated get the power of ruling the whole universe. To this we reply, so Purva Paksha is over, Ramanuja's reply, that the liberated get all the powers except that of ruling the universe, except Lagada. Ruling the universe is guiding the form and the life and the desires of all the sentient and the non-sentient beings. That is called ruling. The liberated ones from whom all that veils his true nature has been removed only enjoy the unobstructed perception of the Brahman, but do not possess the power of ruling the universe. This is proved from the scriptural text, from whom all these things are born, by whom all that are born live, Janmadhyasya, unto whom they, departing, return, ask about it. That is Brahman. So it is Brahman, not man. If this quality of ruling the universe be a quality common even to the liberated, then this text would not apply as a definition of Brahman. Definition differentiates that one object from everything else, defining him through his rulership of the universe. The uncommon attributes alone define a thing. Uncommon attributes alone define a thing. Therefore, in texts like my beloved boy, alone in the beginning there existed the one without a second, that saw and felt, I will give birth to the many, that projected he, different Upanishads. Brahman indeed alone existed in the beginning. That one evolved, that projected a blessed form, the Kshatra. All these gods are Kshatras. Ramanuja's detailed quotation. Varuna, Soma, Rudra, Parjanya, Yama, Mrityu, Ishana. Atman indeed existed alone in the beginning. Nothing else vibrated. He thought of projecting the world. He projected the world after. Different sutras, different Upanishads. Alone Narayana existed. Neither Brahma nor Ishana, nor the Deva Prithivi, nor the stars, nor water, nor fire, nor Soma, nor the sun. He did not take pleasure alone. He did not like being alone. He, after his meditation, had one daughter, the 10 organs, etc. And in others says, who living in this earth is separate from the earth, who living in the Atman, etc. The Shruti speak of the Supreme One as the subject of the work of ruling the universe. Now in these descriptions of the ruling of the universe, is there any position for the liberated soul, by which such a soul may have the ruling of the universe ascribed to it? In explaining the next sutra, Ramanuja says, if you say it is not so, because there are direct texts in the Vedas in evidence to the contrary, these texts refer to the glory of the liberated in the spheres of the subordinate deity. Indra, Chandra, like that they have power, not like God. That is, everywhere Ramanuja puts in something to differentiate. This also is an easy solution of the difficulty. Although the system of Ramanuja admits the unity of the total, within that totality of existence there are, according to him, eternal differences. Vishishta Advaita. Unity is there, all are one. But like tree and branches, we are the body of God, like that is system. Appears to be Advaita, but not so. Therefore, for all practical purposes, this system also being dualistic, it was easy for Ramanuja to keep the distinction between the personal and the personal soul and the personal God very clear. Now Swamiji says, let us see what Shankara says. We shall now try to understand what the great representative of the Advaita school has to say on the point. We shall see how the Advaita, now first of all is explaining, we shall see how the Advaita system maintains all the hopes and aspirations of the realist intact, and at the same time propounds its own solution of the problem in consonance with the high destiny of divine humanity. Man himself is God, that is what is the Advaita position. Maintains all this relatively, but then propounds the final. So what is the explanation? Those who aspire to retain their individual mind even after liberation, you understand? Sri Ramakrishna's language. Shankaracharya had kept the ego of the Jnani. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had kept the ego of the Bhakta. So they are liberated, they know everything. But for working, they have kept this ego. Then they do not have the power. That is Shankara's real explanation. Not that they are different, but for some work, for anything, they have kept that ego. When they have kept the ego, they are not like God. This is the beautiful explanation. Why Brahma is Brahma? All right. But why is not like God? Because he has kept an ego. Bhakti Sami, Jnana Sami, Bhakti Sami, so that means that. That means he has kept it. Kept it means he knows that he is not there. But for work he has kept it. We cannot say we have kept it. So all this, Swamiji has shown Madhva and Ramanuja, but now he is the real explanation. Those who aspire to retain their individual mind even after liberation and to remain distinct will have ample opportunity of realizing their aspirations and enjoying the blessings of the qualified Brahman. These are they who have been spoken of in the Bhagavata Puran thus. Shankar is quoting, O King, such are the glorious qualities of the Lord, that the sages, whose only pleasure is in the self, and from whom all fetters have fallen off, even they love the Omnipresent with the love that is for love's sake. Atma Ramasya Munayo Nirgrantha Api Urukrame Kurvanti Ahetukim Bhaktim Ittam Bhuta Guno Hari. The qualities of Hari, Sagun Brahman, is such that even those who are liberated love him. That is because of his qualities. So that means they kept their separate ego to love him. These are they who are spoken of by Sankhya as getting merged in nature in this cycle. Sankhya philosophy does not admit of a God. But they say that somebody is there. So they say is Kalpa Niyamak Ishwar. For this Kalpa, he has been given the charge of governing the universe. Who is it? In the previous birth, he became identified with the whole Prakriti. That is called getting merged in nature in this cycle, so that after attaining perfection, they may come in the next as lords of the world system. But none of these ever become equal to God. Those who attain to that state where there is neither creation nor created nor creator, where there is neither, this is Nirvikala Samadhi, where there is neither knower nor knowable nor knowledge, where there is neither I nor thou nor he, where there is neither subject nor object nor relation, there who is seen by whom? Such persons have gone beyond everything. To where words cannot go, nor mind. Thakur told Swamiji, after Swamiji got Nirvikala Samadhi, you have seen, now I locked it, and you will have to do mother's work. After that I will read it again. So for doing mother's work, Swamiji, Thakur kept some eye in Swami Vivekananda. Thakur's things are very clear. Shrutis declare as not this, but for those who cannot or will not reach this state. Meaning two things. One is they cannot reach the point. One is they can reach, but they have kept the eye. There will inevitably remain the triune vision of the one undifferentiated Brahman as nature, soul, and the interpenetrating sustainer of both, Ishvara. So when they cannot reach, they see these three. So when Prahlada forgot himself, he found neither the universe nor its cause. All was to him one infinite, undifferentiated by name and form. But as soon as he remembered that he was Prahlada, there was the universe before him, and with it the Lord of the universe. Prahlada is shown as the best Jnani Bhakta. So if he is in Samadhi, there is nothing else. But if he is in the relative world, he is worshipping God. And with it the Lord of the universe, the repository of an infinite number of blessed qualities. This is in the south, Ramanuja's expression. Sakala Kalyana Gunadhar, Nikila Kalyana Gunadesh. Blessed qualities. What the Advaita says. Pralaya also God does not. If a man murders another man, he is guilty, crying. And if God kills all the universe, he is not guilty. So remember, God is not defined in Vedanta as good. He is beyond good and evil. One great example I will quote here. I will not take the name, but tell. One sannyasini of Sarada Math. In her meditation, she experienced. She saw our Jairambati, Ramakrishna Mission Jairambati ashram. And so many compounds are there. You have seen Jairambati? So many compounds are there. And in this compound, sardine distribution, that compound, like that things are going on. And in one compound, maramari is going on, beating each other, killing each other. And then she sees Holy Mother. And Holy Mother says, all this is mine. All this is mine. You understand? Latu Maharaj explained it nicely. Turian Swamiji was explaining something. Then Latu Maharaj said, what you are defending him, like a mother defends child. He said, is God like Genghis Khan? Latu Maharaj said, remember, Bhai Sahib, Genghis Khan's power also is God's power. Then only real bhakti will shine. Swamiji has a poem on Kali the mother. Alternate stanzas, very beautiful, very loving, very affectionate. And in the next stanza, Khadga killing this and that. And Swamiji says those were afraid, bogis, afraid. They say, Holy Mother is blessing me and that Khadga is to kill my enemy. But unless you feel that Khadga is to kill you, your ego, you cannot get the blessings. So, whether the world is real or not, that is the main thing. When the world is too much real to us, we cannot conceive of God at all, really. And we generally input, why God did not do this, what our intelligence is superior than God. So we have seen on the first day that God is Parama Karuni. If suppose, in Rama's time, Ravana is there. Rama said, I have no enmity to Ravana. But because Ravana is doing bad things in the world, I am removing him. So, now you understand things? God gives me this, God gives me that. God gives you thappadas. If one can understand this, that all the sukha dukkha's are given by God, there is no dukkha. He is happy in the dukkha also. That is devotion. That is the real devotion. Now that Rama, even today people are discussing, he should not have banished Sita. That is his fault. But Sita never said so. So, this is what Swamiji is trying to tell. This is Saguneshwar. So Prahlad's example is given. So it was with the blessed gopis. So Swamiji is showing the bhaktas who were jnanis. And in their life we see, this is Swamiji's explanation is still beautiful. Shankara has said those who keep their ego. Swamiji says sometimes they do not keep ego and sometimes they keep ego. When they keep ego, they are worshipping God. When they do not keep ego, they are themselves God. So in this way, Swamiji is explaining. So it was with the blessed gopis. So long as they had lost sense of their own personal identity and individuality, they were all Krishnas. You know the story? In the Rasa Leela, when Krishna disappeared and they were weeping and wailing, they became Krishna. And when they began again to think of him as the one to be worshipped, then they were gopis again. And immediately, Tasam Avira Bhut Shauri Smayamana Mukhambuja Pitambara Dharasragvi Sakyat Manmata. So he appears. Unto them appeared Krishna with a smile on his lotus face, clad in yellow robes and having garlands on, the embodied conqueror in beauty of the God of love. This is Swamiji is coming out of Shankar Bhashya, he has explained this through two examples. Now he says, now to go back to our Acharya Shankar, those he says who by worshipping the qualified Brahman attain conjunction with the Supreme Ruler, Sayujya, conjunction, preserving their own mind, is their glory limited or unlimited? This doubt arising, we get as an argument, their glory should be unlimited because of the scriptural text, they attain their own kingdom, Swarajya Siddhi. To him all the gods offer worship. Their desires are fulfilled in all the worlds. As an answer to this, Vyasa writes, without the power of ruling the universe. Baki sab, everything is all right. Jagat Vyapara Varjan. The gods worship them, everything is all right, but not creation. Barring the power of creation, etc., of the universe, the other powers such as anima, etc., are acquired by the liberated. All these everything comes to them, not this. As to ruling the universe, that belongs to the eternally perfect Ishvara. Why? Because he is the subject of all the scriptural texts as regards creation. Whenever the topic of creation, preservation, destruction has come, Ishvara is pointed out. There Brahman is not pointed out. Though all powers are his. So Ramanujacharya said because he is separate. Shankara said because they have kept their ego. And Swamiji's example is still beautiful. When they have ego, in Sri Ramakrishna we say continuously this. If you praise Sri Ramakrishna, he says, no, I am nothing. I am smaller than your hair. And the next moment he will ask, what do you want? So, you understand this? Thakur does not want us to worship Thakur as a person. The Girish Babu was talking that Thakur is avatar and all that, Ram Babu and Girish Babu. Then Thakur says, now they will start discussing why I am sick. Can we complete this chapter today? Because unnecessary it will drag on. Those who aspire to retain their individual mind even after liberation and to remain distinct will have ample opportunity of realizing their aspirations and enjoying the blessings of the qualified Brahman. These are they who have been spoken of in the Bhagavata Purana. Thus, O king, we read that. Oh, we don't. No, we left the paragraph. We are almost at the end, we shifted. Because he is the subject of all the scriptural texts as regards creation, etc., and the liberated souls are not mentioned there in any connection whatsoever. So though when liberated soul topic is there, they are all powers, everything is there. But when creation is described, always Ishvara is told. There, liberated souls are not told in any place. The Supreme Lord indeed is alone engaged in ruling the universe. The text as to creation, etc., all point to him. Besides, there is given the adjective ever perfect. That means they became perfect now and is always perfect. Also the scriptures say that the powers, anima, etc. of the others are from the search after and the worship of God. How they worship this? Because they worship God. So God has all this siddhis. They get from Him only. Therefore, they have no place in the ruling of the universe. Again, on account of their possessing their own mind, now argument is beautiful. Suppose they have the power, and suppose our own name. Suppose Mahapuruji wishes to create the world, and Brahman Swami at the same time wishes to destroy the world. What will happen? And again, on account of their possessing their own minds, it is possible that their wills may differ. And that while one desires creation, another may desire destruction. The only way of avoiding this conflict is to make all wills subordinate to some one will. Therefore, the conclusion is that the wills of the liberated are dependent on the will of the Supreme Ruler. This I want to give some direct proofs. In the Ramakrishna Mission, all Thakur's disciples, they have their will, but all of their will is subordinate to Mother's will. And so Swami Vivekananda says, you went to High Court against me. Mahaprabhu says, you went to Supreme Court against me. And there they do not talk at all. What she says is absolutely fine. So, they can do everything, but not what Mother Rajna says was not. That is the message. I was telling repeatedly, all the adjectives which we put to Sagun Brahman or Ishwar can be put to Holy Mother. She has her own will. What we say, Ichamai Tara Tumi, Tumar Karma Tumi Karama, Ichamai Tara Tumi, Sakali Tumar Icha, Ichamai Tara Tumi. So that applies to Holy Mother. Bhakti then can be directed towards Brahman only in his personal aspect. So he has come back to that Nirgun Brahma cannot be worshipped. Sagun Brahma is not different from it, but he is the supreme ruler. Nirgun Brahma, when seen as supreme ruler, we call him Sagun Brahma. Bhakti then can be directed towards Brahman only in his personal aspect. Now Gita he quotes, Kleshodikataras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam. The way is more difficult for those whose mind is attached to the Absolute. In the 12th chapter of the Gita, Arjuna asks, what you have told me is Sagun worship. What about those who are Nirgun worshippers? Sir, Krishna tells him there is a big difference. Body consciousness when it is there, Nirgun Brahma worship is not possible. Even the Sagun worshipper, even word in English has not come. Adhikatara Klesha. That means Klesha is there, Adhika Klesha is there for Sagun worshipper. But it is Adhikatara Klesha. And Adhikatara because he is body conscious. So that is some sense of substance. The way is more difficult for those whose mind is attached to the Absolute. Bhakti has to float on smoothly with the current of our nature. True it is that we cannot have any idea of the Brahman which is not anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphic, human mind conceives. That is what big philosophers talk. Ishwar is only anthropomorphic. The whole world is not anthropomorphic. We think of the mind also by our own brain. But is it not equally true of everything we know? The greatest psychologist the world has ever known, Bhagwan Kapila, demonstrated ages ago that human consciousness is one of the elements in the makeup of all the objects of our perception and conception. When we go to perceive, we do it through the mind. When we conceive something, we do it through the mind. And mind makes this name and form and causal effect. Internal as well as external. Beginning with our bodies and going up to Ishvara, we may see that every object of our perception is this consciousness plus something else. Whatever that may be. And this unavoidable mixture is what we ordinarily think of as reality. Indeed it is, and ever will be, all of the realities that is possible for the human mind to know. Therefore, to say that Ishvara is unreal because he is anthropomorphic is sheer nonsense. Swami Vivekananda told Sri Ramakrishna that all the forms are in your mind. Do you believe in Ishvara? Yes. Why? Because the world is there, he is the ruler. Then you meditate like this. Whatever comes in the mind, that is also a form about the world. Remove that. And pray to Ishvara. to show you his real nature. And that is how Swamiji realized. He does not want to see any form. So not only Ishvara has form, but the world has form. Remove that from your mind. That is what Thakur taught Swamiji. Now Swamiji is telling us. It sounds very much like the Occidental scabble on idealism and realism. Occidental means Western. Oriental, Occidental. Oriental means Indian or East. Occidental means West. So in the Western philosophy there is idealism and realism. Idealism not from ideal, idea. That the world is only idea. Some people say world is real. Which fearful looking quarrel has for its foundation a mere play on the world real. The idea of Ishvara covers all the ground. Now you see. The idea of Ishvara covers all the ground ever denoted and connoted by the word real. And Ishvara is as real as anything else in the universe. And after all, the word real means nothing more than what has now been pointed out. Such is our philosophical conception of Ishvara. So philosophical conception of Ishvara is that whatever we know as real, he is ruler. Whatever we know as real, he is the summit. That is the philosophy. So in the third chapter we shall see how they proceed through experience. Om Paratatve Sadalino Ramakrishna Samagya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Viresham Tam Namamyaham. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.